Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Hey guys, welcome to a very, very special chuckload of comics. We're here live at C2E2. It's like a Saturday morning cartoon special. We're talking cartooning and comics with some very, very special guests immediately to my left from Mad Magazine, Mr. Tom Richmond. Tom, how's it going, man?
Going well, thanks.
How's your con going today?
Well, so far so good. It just started, and it's going to be fun. I love this show. It's a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, it is a blast. I mean, doors just opened like an hour ago, and it's already pretty packed in here. To his left, Art Baltazar and Franco with All Yeah Comics.
Oh, yeah, man.
How's the con going the past couple hours?
It's good.
Great.
Coffee's kicking in finally. It's cold enough. You know how they give that? It's like 200 degrees. And I don't know why they do that. They should prepare and say, come back in 15 minutes, pick it up. But it's finally drinkable.
That's awesome.
I needed it an hour ago.
Well, Tom, I want to kind of start with you.
Okay.
I've read your book, Mad Art of the Caricature, 3 times.
Wow.
And I can't draw at all before I read it. So now, I mean, I learned so much from reading this book. Could you kind of break down sort of what kind of the science, because you got a lot of science and technical techniques in there. Like there's science to shape and to form and to what to copy and what not to copy. Could you tell us a little bit about the science of it?
Well, it's funny because when you're an artist, you sort of just do what you do, you know, and but then when you're trying to explain it to somebody, you have to kind of look at your own process and say, well, why do I do that? Mm-hmm. And so I tried to come up with ways to explain how I look at faces and that anybody could, you know, grasp. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of it is about simple shapes and breaking the face down into really simple forms and then manipulating the relationships of those forms and exaggerating the distance and size and angle relative to one another, and then adding back in all the details on top of your new, you know, foundation. Yeah. And that's really the basics of it. And unfortunately, you can't teach people how to see, but you can teach them what to look for, and that's primarily what the book is about.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly informative.
Thank you.
Especially the part like right at the beginning where it talks about sort of your backstory stuff. I'd like to talk a little bit about coming up in your career, but first I want to talk to the guys over here at All Yeah Comics. Tell us a little bit about All Yeah Comics. Itty Bitty Hellboy. I mean, all the fun little characters that you guys do. 3-time Eisner Award winners, I want to say.
Yeah.
I want to say that I really like your voice. I could just
Thanks, man.
Sweet. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It's like Cool Whip. You know?
I want you to read all the audiobooks for me.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, we grew up reading comics and loving comics since we were little kids. So everything we put into our own comics are all the memories and all the things we know about superheroes and comic book characters. And we draw all-age comics because we grew up on like Tom and Jerry, Woody Woodpecker, Bugs Bunny. And I'm a cartoonist, so I can't draw any other way.
Yeah.
So when I draw comics, that's what they look like. And the humor is designed for everyone to like because Bugs Bunny's all ages, and Powerpuff Girls all ages, and Teen Titans, you know, and Super Friends. It's like all of these things is what we put into our book. So when they asked us to work on DC characters, and they said we don't want any fighting in the book, and we want them just to be like comic strips, we're like, okay, and no bad guys, just Tiny Titans going to school and hanging out.
Yeah.
So that's
But a lot of the references in the book, people will ask us all the time, you know, how much research did you do? And we're like, none. We just read the comics when we were kids.
Yeah.
You know, so...
Yeah, you already know
Stories
all
are
the
in
stuff.
their head. Yeah, they're all in the
You did the research from age 5 to age like 16.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned that. So DC actually like reaches out to you. I was going to ask you about licensing and stuff, but it sounds like
No.
they called you up one day.
Yeah, and same with Dark Horse. With Magnola reached out to us.
Really?
Yeah, and Dark Horse publisher. Yeah.
So what were the Eisner Award-winning books? Are we?
It was Tiny Titans.
Tiny Titans got 2, and
then
Itty Bitty Hellboy.
Itty Bitty Hellboy, and we won a Harvey for Superman Family Adventures.
For Tiny Titans.
For Tiny Titans as well.
Superman Family was nominated.
But
And Tiny Titans nominated. Nominated 3 times, but won twice. So we've been all over the place.
Man, congratulations!
it's
what a
kinda
killer
nuts.
career.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
way
never
back when
expect
we were trying to break in the industry, and nobody would, you know, like I got a pile of rejection letters, like, you know, 3 bricks high. And then we're like, screw it, we're not going to do it anymore. We're going to give up. And the minute we decided to give up, that's when they called and said, we want to give you a job.
We released
It's amazing.
We released an indie book called Patrick the Wolf Boy, and that was going to be our last book. we were gonna make one awesome book and then leave the industry, go drive a truck or get a job or something. And then that book sold like thousands of copies, and people bought it.
Then we said we should make another one.
Yeah, let's
and then
make another one.
And then that's
yeah,
we made
that was
like,
in 2001.
how
I
many
think it
did
was.
Patrick? Did we do
Like 18 or 19 of them?
19 of them, and then that caught the attention of DC, and then
Yeah, we show up at every convention with a new book,
Yeah.
and people will love it, and that's what happened. DC people bought it, and that's how they got the call. Hey, we want Wolf Boy books, but with our characters.
It's amazing. I mean, just drawing the stuff that you
Yeah,
loved when you were a kid,
yeah,
and now like the industry's knocking down your door.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
yeah, it's
pretty
weird.
awesome, man.
It's weird, and I don't know how it happened, but we're here 28 years later, and I started 28 years ago, and here it is.
Well, speaking of starting 28 years ago, Tom, again, I read your book and follow you a lot on social media and stuff. You got a really interesting kind of coming up story. So take us into the time machine. Back to, I mean, you worked at amusement parks. I mean, how'd you get going in the career?
Well, I always wanted to do comics, but I really didn't have a style that really fit for like superhero stuff, you know. And one day I was skipping class at the University of Minnesota at an art school. I was going to art there, and I just had these awful art classes. And I saw a poster on the wall in the commons area that said, "Can you draw?" And it was an advertisement for caricature artists at the local theme park. And I ended up doing caricatures all through my college career during every summer at Six Flags Chicago, right down.
I was going to say, Great America.
Here. And I fell in love with caricature and humor. I realized at that point that humor was where my wheelhouse. You know, if I just had a blank piece of paper and I could draw anything, I always would draw something funny. So I switched to more humorous type illustration work, and then I got a job doing comics for Now Comics, a title called Married with Children, back in the
I remember that, yeah.
early 90s. And somebody just stopped by my booth with a bunch of old copies of that, and I was looking through it going, man, how did I ever get a job in comics? My stuff was just awful, but back in the early 90s, you know, the industry was different. You didn't have to be like, you know, the next coming of Neil Adams to get a job in comics. And
You just had to meet the deadline.
yeah, exactly. And like do some halfway decent stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And but then I got a call from Marvel. They wanted me to do a miniseries called The Coneheads. That was like a sequel to the movie with Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin's characters. And then I started applying for other work, and I ended up at MAD, and I started in 2000. And been working for them ever since.
Wow. What's the process working with MAD? I mean, this day and age, it's got to be just sort of all mail-in and digital, right? I mean...
Yeah. Well, I still ink, draw and ink the old-fashioned way, man, with dip pens and brushes and the whole works.
Really?
But then I scan it, and of course, MAD's been in color for 2 decades now, and I do all my color work digitally. So I'd end up with a digital file, and I just upload it.
Yeah.
And then I go to bed.
Did they give you a script beforehand, or
Oh,
did
yeah.
they just kind of fill in the words based on what you draw?
Most of what I do is the movie and TV parodies, and that's a very specific process. So a writer writes it, and then they edit it, and they lay it out with the word balloons and everything in place. And I get these layouts that have all the word balloons done, and I know exactly how much art room I've got, and I have to draw around the word balloons. So
That's amazing.
It's a little bit like a puzzle, you know, because you have to figure out how to sell the gags that are in the word balloons, and then do the caricatures and the storytelling. But then also, my favorite part is the chicken fat, all the little background gags that I get to write and draw and kind of hide in the corners.
Yep.
And that adds another layer of humor to it, and that's very much a MAD tradition. And so yeah, it's a complicated process. By the time I get it, a lot of work's already been done on those projects, and I'm sort of the last cog in the wheel.
Wow. Well, last question. Your favorite movie parody spread you've ever done?
Oh boy, that's a hard one. I usually just say the last one, but that's a bunch of crap. Boy, I'm a huge Batman fan, so I really love doing the 3 Nolan Batman movies.
Yeah.
So take your pick of which one. Probably the last one, The Dark Knight Rises, which
Because Bane is probably fun to make fun of.
I think that one was called The Dork Knight Reprises. And that was a fun one.
Well, awesome. Franco, Art, Tom, thanks a lot for coming by and talking to us. I know you guys are really, really busy at the con. Your lines are probably really long. But
I hope so.
So, guys, stay tuned here all weekend long here at C2E2 booth 1876. Chuckload of Comics. Find us on YouTube for great interviews like this all weekend long. Have a great day, guys. Have a wonderful con.
Oh, yeah, man.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having us.
sir. You're awesome.
Sweet.